This is the TwinFire Eco Green from, hey, can you turn the camera around? Yeah, okay, that's better. Where was I? So this is the X8 Eco Green TwinFire wood burning stove from German stove maker Xeoos. And before we go any further, yes, that is two flames, and yes, one of them is burning upside down. But don't worry, in this video I'll explain exactly how this works, the TwinFire principles, and why this could be the future of wood burning stoves in the UK. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, let's take an overlook at the stove itself. This is the X8 Eco Green model, and it features a black steel outer casing and an 8mm thick steel door. The stove stands on this plinth and around 110cm high, it's 48cm wide and 40cm deep. On the top we've got a central 150mm or 6-inch flue outlet, and it's also possible to connect this from the rear as well should you need to. Now this particular version is the larger 8kW nominal output model, but there's also a smaller 5kW version available. This one operates between 4 and 12 kilowatts, and you can control that using this lever at the back here. Now this works slightly differently to other air controls on stoves, but we'll have a little bit more on that later on. You also have the option to connect the stove directly to the outside via an external air connection that's located underneath the stove inside this plinth down here. This optional piece allows you to run a pipe through the back wall directly into the stove. And as this stove has a nominal output of 5 kilowatts, it's highly likely that your room would require additional ventilation. So opting for the external air connection can oftentimes be a way to avoid having to put an air brick into the room. Now, as we open the door using the handle up top, we can start to see what sets the Xeoos apart from other stoves. And that's the dual combustion chamber. That's the heart of every TwinFire stove. At the top we've got a fairly standard looking firebox, vermiculite lined fire bricks, schmock base bricks, a glass log retaining bar, and an interesting looking domed central grate. Now it's when we get down to the bottom that things start to take a turn, as we have a secondary chamber here, again lined with vermiculite with our ash pan underneath, but we have these holes in the bottom here. More on those a little bit later. Okay, so I'm going to light the stove now and get what we'd call a hellfire established in the top firebox. While I explain how the TwinFire principle works, lighting a Xeoos stove is different to other stoves due to how the air enters the firebox and the domed grate in the centre. We've got a dedicated video running through this step-by-step process, which we'll link below for you. As this is the X8 firebox, the maximum log length that we should use is 33cm or 28cm if you have the narrower X5 version. Once we've added the logs, we can close the door. Now, the handle has two positions for different operations, but for now we will place it into position 1, which is up at a 45-degree angle. After those initial 2 logs have taken, we need to add more wood to raise the firebox and chimney temperatures. Now, on most stoves we wouldn't do this until about 20 or 30 minutes in, but on the Xeoos we want the heat in the main firebox and chimney sooner, and while the handle is in position 1, we're putting more air into the firebox to assist with this. Now the fire is established, it's time to add one more log and turn the handle from position 1 to position 2. This will activate the TwinFire mode, whereby the flames are pulled down from the top firebox into the lower chamber, creating this energetic blast of fire that burns downwards. But Reece, why does the flame burn upside down, I hear you ask? Well, it gets a little complicated, but in essence, on a conventional wood burning stove, air comes in, aids the combustion process of the fuel, and is drawn up and out of the stove by the chimney. This is exactly the same on a TwinFire stove when we're burning in the top chamber only, with the handle in position 1. What changes is when you move the handle, as this shuts off the flue way in the top of the stove, and instead opens up a flue path that runs down the back of the stove, before splitting left and right and coming in through those holes in the lower compartment. At the same time, the air that's being directed into the top of the firebox under the domed grate and via this central piece known as the double ground changes so that the air is now ignited as the flames pass through it. This is similar to the tertiary air supply in the back of a conventional wood burner, where you see those little holes and you can get the little flame jets coming off of them. But this is turned all the way up to 11, as now we're gasifying. The result is that the fire in the heart of this now is burning at 1200 degrees Celsius, while a conventional wood burner would typically reach about 700 degrees Celsius. The benefit of this higher temperature is that so much more of the combustion particulates are burnt before leaving the stove that it achieves a 93% efficiency rating all of the time whilst in this secondary twin fire position. Now compare that to conventional wood burners that at their best could have a max peak efficiency of 89 or 90%, but not for sustained periods of time like we have with the twin fire, which is why this is one of the most efficient wood burning stoves in the world. Now, as you would expect with a stove that burns this cleanly, it far exceeds eco-design standards implemented in the UK and Europe in 2022, and has also been exempt by DEFRA for burning wood in the smoke control zone. And it's no surprise really, as the flue temperature when it is in the twin fire mode is close to 150 degrees as it exits the stove. Now that's half the temperature of a conventional wood burner, because this stove has such a low amount of particulate matter as it enters the chimney that the flue gas temperature is that much lower. So that's the principle behind how a twin fire stove works. Next, let's take a look at the controls. Now, as mentioned, the control up the top here moves forwards and backwards. Now I tend to think of this lever more as a throttle. When it's pushed all the way to the back, we're letting the maximum amount of air into the stove. And when it's pulled all the way forwards, we're restricting the amount of air that's entering from underneath that dome grate, as we outlined before, and also it comes in via holes in the back and washes down the glass to create an air wash effect. Now, the more air, the wood will burn faster, meaning that you need to add wood more frequently, but you'll generate closer to 12 kilowatts when this is pushed all the way to the back. Less air and the wood will burn more slowly, and you'll be closer to the 4 kilowatts of heat per hour. Now, talking of adding wood, one of the biggest advantages of these twin fire stoves have over conventional wood burners is that you can bank your logs up, meaning that we can now add more logs onto the top of this fire, as only the fuel at the bottom is burning at any one time. Now that's the genius behind this innovative domed grate in the centre here, as it allows the wood to burn whilst elevating the wood above the main firebox space until the wood has burnt out. As such, it's possible to load the stove up and not have to reload it for 3+ hours. Now, when it comes to the chimney, there's a couple of things that are worth knowing. Firstly, it's not possible to sweep the stove from within due to the moving baffles in the top. You won't be able to get a brush for it, so you need to make a sweeping provision in the flue pipe above to ensure that it can be swept. Now, we have a separate video on how to service and maintain a twin fire stove, which we'll link below for you. Now, the second factor is that Xeoos stoves do not operate as efficiently on high-pulling chimneys, so it's important that if you already have an existing chimney that you wish to connect this stove into, take that flue draft reading before installing. We'll put on the screen now what the optimum operating Pascal range is for Xeoos stoves. Now, to aid in this, Xeoos have developed a slider mechanism that can fit into the underside of the stove where the combustion air is drawn in. Now, this slider helps your installer to restrict the rate in which the air is entering the stove, which in turn slows down the rate that air is pulled up the chimney. This slider also comes fitted as standard when you order it with the external air connection. Talking of extras, there's one must-have accessory in our opinion for all Xeoos stoves. And no, we're not talking about the sword in the stone optional fire poker, although, no, what I'm actually referring to is this. The twin fire gate. This thinned piece of metal fits into the ash pan in the lower combustion chamber and gives you a more attractive view through the lower glass. Now it's practical too, as rather than just looking down into an ash pan, the ash is now mostly concealed between the fins, and should any unburnt fuel fall through the grate above and down into the ash pan, then the heat from the 1200 degrees C flames actually warms the metal up, giving it this orange glow, which can then reburn any unburnt fuel, adding to the fuel efficiency and reducing the amount of ash the stove produces. Now, coming back to this model, the X8 Eco Green, as mentioned, it's available in a narrower 5 kilowatt version as well. You can also choose to have a silver door with the black convection sides on top, or if you want something a little more fancy, then you can take a look at the complete stainless steel version as well. Now Xeoos also offer different designs with different bases and materials, and there's a new automatic TwinFire model that has just been launched that we're looking to feature on the channel in the future. We'll put a link to the website in the description below so you can check out all of these models for yourself. So, is this the future of wood burning in the UK? Well, it's certainly an alternative way to burn wood, and one that is arguably cleaner and more efficient. But I want to know what you think of this stove, so let me know in the comments if you're on Team TwinFire or not. Now Xeoos is a brand that I import into the UK, and the location I'm filming from today will hopefully become the new home of Xeoos UK, so make sure you hit that subscribe button to follow that journey with us in 2025. On the screen now are some more stove spotlights, as well as some other useful wood burner insights, so that you can get the most from your stove and discover the wide selection of wood burners available in the UK. From TwinFire stoves like this, to 360-degree masterpieces and everything in between.